a verdict in the dog park murder trial for Gerald Radford. He said it was self-defense. This happened in the dog park, and the victim in this case, Walt Lay. Let's go in for the verdict.
All right, be seated. My understanding is you have reached a verdict. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
If you would hand the verdict form to the bailiff for me. And the verdict form is in order. If you publish the verdict and poll the jury, please.
Yes, ma'am. State of Florida versus Gerald Declan Radford. Case number 24-CF-003630A. Trial Division 3 verdict form. We, the jury, find as follows as to count 1, second-degree murder. The defendant is not guilty. So say we all, dated the 6th day of February, 2025. Juror number 1, foreperson of the jury. Juror number 1, is this your true and correct verdict?
It is.
Juror number 2, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes, it is.
Juror number 3, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 4, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 5, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 6, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to spend one more moment telling you again how very much I and we appreciate your service here this week. As I told you earlier this week, we can't do what we do in this courtroom or any courtroom in this country without people like you who have responded and made this great sacrifice. The right to a trial by jury is fundamental to our system of justice. So I'm very sincere when I tell you how much I appreciate the dedication and close attention that I know you all have paid during the course of this trial. That much being said, all of my constant admonitions about not talking about the case are obviously lifted. You can do as much or as little of that as you would like to. You are never required to talk about your jury deliberations or your jury service absent a court order. But if you do choose to talk about jury service with others, I hope it has a somewhat positive spin so that if they get a jury service summons, they too will come down to the courthouse as you all have done this week. So that much being said, if you have any questions or would like to speak to any of the lawyers afterwards, you can let the bailiffs know. They'll let you know how you can effectuate that. I think you all have my contact information. If you have any feedback or input that you'd like to give me, I always welcome that as well. So without further ado, I want to thank you again for your time and attention and sacrifice this week. I hope you have a great rest of your week and a great weekend, and you are officially released from your jury service. Thank you.
All rise.
Oh, this is crazy. Let's bring in trial attorney Trey Gober. And I say it's crazy. You saw him wink when the not guilty was first read. Then eventually he started crying. He, being the defendant, who's now, Trey, a free man. This is the 4th not guilty this week. We'll talk about some of the others. But what a day for the defense in this case. What are your thoughts?
I've been in that chair next to a defendant in the same situation. Those are emotional circumstances. It's tough all the way around. There's winners and losers on every trial. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we have to put our trust in the jury to find the right decisions, and the state has the highest burden beyond reasonable doubt. And in this case, the jury found that the defendant wasn't guilty, and we have to trust that they heard and understood the evidence in reaching that verdict.
And I do agree with you. We're watching a live pick. I just want to say that because you can see some people upset. There they are in the courtroom. But I do believe in our jury system. I think it's the best in the world. And I absolutely agree that that's where this lies. And they did their job. But it's fascinating to me because we don't always see acquittals. And we've seen it in 4 specific cases this week. We saw it yesterday with Colin Griffith, who killed his mother. The jury didn't know he'd also killed his father, allegedly in self-defense. He walked out of jail yesterday, a free man, still really a juvenile at 17. I think he had just turned 18, actually. Penelope McGee, her husband had a heart attack, and the The medical examiner said, well, it was homicide because it was due to her actions that he had that heart attack. She was found not guilty. We've got the prior district attorney in Brunswick in the Ahmaud Arbery case, charged with interference, and Jackie Johnson. She was acquitted because the judge dismissed each of the 2 charges. And then we have this today. Talk to me as a defense attorney, because it's not typical, I think, regrettably, but I would suggest that maybe you don't always get not guilties across the board on your cases.
Well, certainly, you know, the prosecution's not taking a case to trial unless they think they have a really good chance or reason to get a guilty verdict. But these are tough cases. And at the end of the day, while there was a lot of evidence, and certainly a lot of circumstantial evidence against defendant Radford, at the end of the day, the jury decided that there just wasn't enough to hold the state to its, holding the state to its burden to find a guilty verdict. And that's unfortunate for the victim and the victim's family. But the reality is that, with the not guilty verdict, we can all feel safe that the state is being held to its burden, even on these most egregious cases, such as second-degree murder.
Yeah, and so it was interesting. Florida, there was a stand your ground hearing. We did hear him testify in that. He decided not to testify in this case, although he claimed self-defense. The state said that he killed the victim because he was gay, and he said, no, I did it in self-defense. Clearly, the jury must have agreed that he did it in self-defense, or the evidence wasn't there to prove that he'd done it beyond a reasonable doubt. So in hindsight, clearly not testifying was a good decision on his part.
It worked. It's always the toughest decision. It's a decision to be made by the defendant upon the advice of counsel. And in this case, it worked. It's easy to Monday morning quarterback and say woulda, shoulda, coulda, done something differently. But that's one of the things as a defense attorney, when you're picking a jury, you want to make sure the jury is understanding and won't hold it against your client if the client decides not to testify. In this case, it worked. The defendant was acquitted. Whether that's right or wrong, that is what happened, and we have to trust our system of justice.
Trey, you're absolutely right. I agree with you. We have to trust our system. He is a free man, acquitted in this case, the dog park murder trial.